called to order at 7:02. First on the agenda would be roll call. Dr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
Ms. Menard?
Here.
Mr. Ozier?
Here.
The chair is here. Absent are Dr. Benoit and Ms. Ramos. Next up, you have a copy of the meeting minutes from the March 13th meeting and the February 27th meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
If we could take a few moments to look at those, February 27th first and then March 13th. Let me know if you have any comments.
What are we looking at? 27.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I think we have to do each one separately. So February, yeah,
The 13th first.
17th, the 27th, it's the earlier one.
February 13th.
Well, we got the 13th too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
You're right, February 13th first.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of February 13th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those meeting minutes are passed as is. Next,
Make a motion to accept the February 27th meeting minutes
as presented.
as presented.
We have a second?
You can still second.
Do we? Do we have a second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the meeting minutes from February 27th are accepted as presented, and the March 13th.
And I'll continue and make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of March 13th as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, with just a quick discussion. Near the end, it's my name. It says Mr. Dozier. We could just drop the D. That would be it.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
So we have a motion and a second and a spelling correction. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the meeting minutes March 13th are accepted with the spelling correction for Mr. Osier's name. Okay, next on the agenda, do any planning board members need to disclose any potential conflicts on the matters before the planning board this evening? Hearing none.
What was?
Any planning board members need to disclose any ex parte communications about any contested or material adjudicatory facts or opinions concerning the merits of any application before the board this evening? Nope, hearing none. Can make a motion to rearrange.
Oh, yeah, sure. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we bring item 9 to be the next in the agenda and then discuss item 7.
Okay. So we have a motion to move item 9 to being next on the agenda, which would make it, well, sorry, first, before, hold that thought. Our voting members this evening are Dr. Roberts, Mr. Porter, Ms. Menard, Mr. Ozier, and myself. So now we have a motion on the table to bring item 9 to being item 7 next on the agenda. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
We have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No one? Okay. So, item 7, formerly item 9. Mr. Carullo, if you could give us an introduction on this?
Mr. Chairman, as you are aware, the item 9 is a continuation of the Pound Hill Realty LLC application for a zone change. This would be the third, I believe, meeting before the planning board, and it was a continuation of the 2 prior meetings, and we were expecting continued presentation by the applicant. However, at the request of the applicant's attorney earlier today, they're looking for a continuance. I think Mr. Redahan is here to request that continuance formally to the board. The reason that they had asked for a continuance is that the town council, I believe at its last meeting, made a request to the applicant that they would pay for peer review of the applicant's consultants. The applicant has agreed. The town council has contacted the planning office and asked us to seek out qualified experts to review the material that has been submitted so far. The office has reached out to the applicant's attorneys. We're expecting them to be providing us with resumes over the next couple of days, and then we'll be out searching for qualified experts to review their material. I believe I had recommended to the applicant that we continue until June to give the department the opportunity to find qualified experts, have them review the material, and then provide a response back to the council prior to us continuing our next meeting. And I think Mr. Redahan is here to make that request.
Well, good evening. Charles Redahan on behalf of the applicant. We're simply requesting a continuance to the June planning board meeting to allow us time to provide that information and those qualified experts to the town.
Okay. And Mark, what's your opinion on that?
Well, my recommendation is to authorize the continuance to allow the experts to review, and at which point they will be back before the planning board. I believe that they had one expert testify. I don't know what experts they would be proposing to bring back before the board. I do know that there was, as part of the application, a submission of a comprehensive plan review by a planning expert. I would ask that they bring that expert back before the board at that time to make a presentation to the council. So my recommendation is to continue this to the June meeting.
Okay. Mr. Porter, you had something?
Yeah, Mark, just, I know we've had multiple meetings, the council has had multiple meetings in regards to this matter. Would it make more sense for us to have a joint meeting with the council, so then that way the planning board, the council are all present at the same time, asking questions of the experts, hearing the reports back from the peer reviewer, as opposed to having the peer reviewers come back multiple times before this board and the council? I'm just trying to think of a way that we could make sure that we're realizing certain efficiencies amongst this process, because I think it would be good for the council to hear the planning board's concerns, if any, or comments. And also, we're all hearing the same thing at the same time. We're not hearing multiple experts on multiple different nights. And it seems like that could potentially help us get all on the same page, understand where both the planning board and the council might be coming from. And then that way we have the ability to, maximize some efficiencies and not wasting time having essentially one presentation done twice.
So the obligation of the applicant to make a presentation to the planning board is strictly limited to consistency with the comprehensive plan in their request.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually submitted additional information with regard to that. The planning board's role in the process is to make a recommendation to the council. I'm not an attorney, but I would think that there could be a conflict in having a joint meeting, and that you're to be advising the town council, and to meet together would almost could give the appearance of a coordination between the two. I just, as the planner, I don't think that that's appropriate.
Okay.
With regard to them bringing additional experts before the board to testify, I think that's actually been beneficial to the planning board in the event that they make a recommendation to the council and want to include certain stipulations related to those experts that are over and above simply a recommendation, whether you find it consistent or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. So while I think the amount of information that's being provided by the planning board far exceeds anything necessary for you to make that determination, I think it's been useful in deliberating and actually speaking back and forth with residents and the applicant to give them and to get an understanding as to the types of issues related to the development planning issues that are beyond the comprehensive plan. I mean, the process actually is, if they were successful, apply for a zone change.
Right.
Come to the planning board, is it consistent, yes or no? Goes to the council approves the zone change. Then technically, they'd have to be coming back to the planning board for a development plan review, at which point you're gonna hear from all of those experts. So I think that in and of itself is actually expediting the process, should it get back to this board for consideration for a development plan review based on the council approving the zone change. I know that's a lot of words, but.
Yeah. No, I know the applicant has had their experts come to this board, go to the council, similar presentations, and then same thing with our peer reviewers. If they're gonna come and report back on their experts'
Yeah.
reports, give us a presentation, give the council a presentation. There's just a lot of, logistics and getting people in the same room, so I didn't know if it would be beneficial just to have everybody in the same room.
I would just be concerned, well, as far as
Well,
presentation, I would just be concerned about the conflict between the planning board's responsibility to the council and making a
Well, if I could-
recommendation for consideration by the
Sure.
council.
If I could request, would it be something that you could bring up with the solicitor?
I can do that.
Let's get his opinion on it.
Yeah, I would do that.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Mark, I appreciate that.
No problem.
Anything else on that? The other thing, Mr. Carrillo, if I could ask too, we have some residents here today, and while I know this is not a public hearing, would it be appropriate, even though we're only voting on the continuance, but they came here with questions and answers, stuff like that, would that be appropriate?
I would defer to counsel for the applicant, but I don't think it's inappropriate if they would like to speak on the matter and they are here, they can, if they're just going to make comment.
I mean, I was gonna say, we can put some bounds on conversation, because obviously the applicant is not here with experts. But I think some of this is bringing up some topics from previous meetings, and I think the questions may be more for us in the planning office than for you.
Full disclosure, I wouldn't be able to answer any substantive
Gotcha.
questions, so.
Gotcha. So, well, how does the board feel about that? We'll open it up, and if the question isn't appropriate for this evening, we'll just say, sorry, it's not appropriate
Well,
for this evening.
we could take the question under advisement and
Yeah.
certainly be prepared, at a future meeting for the applicant's
That's what I was thinking.
representative to answer the question.
I think it's always best to let people have their say, right? So, is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, I'll take a motion to, because I think we should do that before we vote on the
Yep.
continuance.
I'll make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The public hearing is reopened at 7:14. If anybody would like to speak, please come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and remember, address everything to the board. And at the very least, we'll, as the planner said, we'll take it under
I've been
advisement.
told to be quiet before, so that's okay. My name's Richard Grubb. I live on Fowler Street in North Smithfield, not really close to the quarry, but I became interested in what was going on with the quarry as I learned more and more about the history and the actions, which I didn't care for. The reason I came tonight, I wanted to speak about some specific things, but since this meeting has been postponed, I would just like to ask a couple of questions. Your board, I think, was very conscientious and asked good questions of the quarry. I haven't heard the answers. Now, maybe you got answers privately, but I really think the public deserves to know. For instance, Dr. Roberts mentioned about what makes this a good asset for the town, and she asked how much tax we actually benefit from this operation. And in both cases, Mr. Landry said, I'll get back to you. Your chairman asked about, what? I forgot. Some of the things about the use variance. He asked about the question of whether the quarry was operating before 7 o'clock in the morning, which, by the way, at 5:51 this morning, there was noise from the quarry. I didn't personally go there. The individual gave it to me. I don't mind telling you, it's Jason Richer, and a lot of people discount what Jason says because he's been so strongly against the quarry. But I believe his fact. He sent me the video on the phone, and you would think that right now the quarry would be on their best behavior since they're looking for favors. There was also a question about the number of trucks that were used on the road. Rebecca de Cristofaro mentioned there were up to 100 trucks, and you rightly asked, is that correct? And is somebody going to look into it? I haven't heard anything about that. And the other thing is just a wild-ass question I have, but following Ms. Roberts' line of questioning, the taxes appear don't appear to be a whole lot of value to me. But I heard from another resident saying that in the town of Blackstone, they actually have a surcharge which goes to the town when a piece of property that is zoned residential gets mined. Apparently, it doesn't happen on the commercial properties, but it does happen on the residential properties. If that's the case, I would ask planning or town council or someone to look into that, because we should gain from the town if we're giving something for the town. I'm sorry, we should gain something from the quarry. I have more to say, but that's enough.
sorry.
Thank you.
Well, the first thing, I'll just address the last thing first, which is, you're correct when you said the town council.
Yes.
All things financial are town council's purview, so, but it's a valid point to raise for the council. On the other three, you're right, we did have these questions, and Mr. Carullo, I can assure you that we don't get private answers also. That's be inappropriate, so, but Mr. Carullo, have we gotten any feedback on these questions?
No, we have not received any responses from the applicant on those questions. I've written down the questions, and I will send those to the
Yeah, and
applicant
they
just to reconfirm the planning board's request. I think the one that it was discussed were the hours of operation. I think the attorney for the applicant, I don't want to speak for him, we can go back and check the record, stated that he believed that they were operating within the hours authorized, and if they weren't, he would let the property owner know that they should be. With regard to anyone operating outside of the hours, if there's concern about that, my suggestion would be, if there was a concerned resident, you call the police department, the police will go there, and they will enforce the ordinance.
Okay. All right, so if you could check with Attorney Landry on the other topics about getting back to us, because, yeah, that's what we were told, get back, fine, it's okay, but now it's been a month, and if we don't have an answer, we'd like to get an answer. Okay.
Enforcement of the ordinance is an interesting thing too, because citizens are told to call the police. I don't know, if I was a policeman, that would drive me crazy. Personally.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for the board? See anything? No? Okay.
Make a motion that we continue the public hearing and public meeting to a date certain of the June 10th.
Okay.
Before we vote on that, I have a question about the process for continuing this meeting. Because I appreciate that Mr. Grubb actually asked about taxes, because that's one of my questions if we would have had our hearing tonight or our meeting. What's the process for us on the board if we have additional questions beyond what's already been asked? Is our June meeting going to continue that process and we can continue to ask questions?
Yes.
Okay, great.
there is,
Thank
right.
you. Thanks.
So we have a motion to close to continue the public hearing. Do we have a second?
I'll second, oh.
We have several seconds.
Yeah, well, I actually have a question too.
Go ahead.
I know at the last meeting, I asked if there could be any data that was supported or claimed to be fed into some of the assumptions of the studies, like data that was submitted to DEM or EPA or anything like that. I was told we would get that information.
So that's another open,
I checked all my
question.
junk mail and everything. I haven't seen it. So I think as we're asking, I think in the spirit of, I've heard transparency a lot and full transparency and being good neighbors, some of that info, if it's going to be shared in the future, should come pretty readily now. So I think just having that, and then I know we'll get additional with an expert potential, but I think having some of that information in front of us helps make the conversation more informed. So thanks.
yep.
So just for the boards, and the chairman isn't mentioning this, but the chairman did reach out to me before this meeting and requested that information be provided to the board for this evening in advance of this meeting. That request was made to the applicant's attorney, including resumes of experts, any testimony, and any other information. I'm assuming that that would have been forthcoming, and we will again revisit that request. So I would have expected that that would have been, some of that information would have been here. I'm not sure that that specific information would have been provided, but we have made that request, and we will make that request again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion, and we have a second, continuing the public hearing. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The public hearing is continued as of 7:23. So along those lines, yeah, one of the things I'd ask the planner to do is to, for the next experts that come in, that we use a normal presentation practice, which means prepare a presentation. Usually it's in a PowerPoint. CJ gets it, can put it up there, and have the expert present, as opposed to the courtroom-style question and answer process that was used the last time. It adds time, but I don't feel it adds value, because in the end, the information is still the same. So just have them present. The other thing with a presentation like that, they would need to submit it ahead of time. So therefore, it'd be public information. People can actually review it prior to, as opposed to hearing all this for the first time, right? So that-
Certainly.
Yeah, so that's what we would like to see happen, again, also in the interest of expedience, too. So, all right?
Understood.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I know we've heard there's multiple reports out there, and I don't think we've seen a single one yet, so.
Right, so that's, the planning office will help track all that down, so.
Yep.
So the matter before us this evening really is about the continuance, and what we've sort of implied an answer with continuing the public hearing to June 10th, but we need to vote on, making that continuance official, so. Any further thoughts on that? Otherwise, I'll be looking for a motion.
Did we just continue with that?
Well, we just continued the public hearing. We didn't,
Oh, we did officially?
yes. We're either approving or not the
Sure.
continuance they asked for.
All right, I will make a motion that we continue to a date certain of June 10th, the amendment to the zoning ordinance text and town zoning map for Pound Hill Realty to a date certain.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call vote. Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Ms. Menard?
Yes.
Mr. Ozier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So motion is approved, and the continuance to June 10th. Thank you. Next up, let me, yeah, I got it. Okay. Formally, item 7. Bobby, why is there no item 8?
It's just to see if you
We're trying to fool
found
you
that or
guys.
not.
Okay, thank you.
As a test.
So, the
Hey,
new,
I didn't do
we're
that.
skipping the non-existent item 8 and going on to the new item 9.
Oh,
This is a
No,
public
I
meeting,
did.
pre-application concept review, 934 Victory Highway, Palm Coast Capital. Ms. Grillo, how about an introduction?
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is a pre-application meeting at the request of the applicant, Palm Coast Capital. They are contemplating coming before the planning board for a formal application on the site at 934 Victory Highway to construct a commercial building. They requested to come before the planning board early on to get some feedback from the board with regard to the concept. They're here this evening, represented by their engineer, I believe, who will be making a presentation, very informal presentation, and just looking for some feedback from the board, comments, concerns, suggestions, recommendations.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, I shut it off. For the record, my name is Casey Birch. I'm a senior project manager with Solely Engineering. And I am here on behalf of the applicant, Palm Coast Capital LLC, to discuss this pre-application concept application submitted for the proposed tractor supply at 934 Victory Highway. Just to give you guys orientation of where this property is, it is a 10.46 acre site. It's located in the business neighborhood zoning district. It's bound by Victory Highway to the north, the commercial property to the east, the shopping center, and residential property to the south, and undeveloped wooded land to the west. There is a pocket of wetlands on the site that is identified. It's on the eastern portion. Currently, our project is outside the 100-foot buffer of that. I'll switch to the next screen that you had on before, just so it's a close-up. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 21,930 square foot tractor supply building. With that comes the typical fenced-in outdoor display area to the west of the building. The sidewalk, kind of a deep sidewalk along the whole frontage. That also includes 4 sidewalk display areas. In a parking lot with 66 parking spaces, 4 of which are ADA. And then trailer display area in that magenta up to the north of the site there. And then in the rear, we have our loading operations. I just kind of want to go through the display areas because I think it's going to be important to get with the full square footage of this. We break down the sales display area. In this plan, it shows it in colors, minus the orange. Don't ignore the orange. That's internal. That's not an actual display area. So the trailer space in magenta is about 2,800 square feet. The sidewalk display in green, the lighter green along the store frontage, that's 3,780 square feet. And then the whole fenced outdoor display in yellow, that's 20,330 square feet. And then they have a live goods center, which is kind of like it's not like it's hard to explain. It's not it just stores the plants and the flowers, but it's not a, what's that sound? Well, I'm trying to think of something here. It doesn't, greenhouse, thank you. They don't grow in those. It's just for their sales display. And for all that totals 29,550 square feet, just the outdoor display areas. The loading in the rear, the truck will come down to the side, and we have that appendage of pavement off to the side so they can K-turn and back into it. They don't typically do like a turning radius. And in the back, it's a movable metal loading dock. They don't actually have a depressed truck well or anything. So they back up into that and they can move it to wherever they need to. And then there's a dumpster in the back there that's protected by bollards in the back of it. So that's just the loading area. This is very preliminary, but I did want to talk to you guys about the utilities because the major one that we would need to do is a water extension. There is no water in front of the site. Everything else will be tied off from the infrastructure that's in Victory Highway right now. But water will have to be, I'll go back to the other slide real quick. There is a main at the intersection here, so we will have to extend a water main 950-ish feet to the front of the site to provide water here. Quick thing with stormwater, we don't really want to touch the buffer area, so we'll most likely have underground detention, and then it will come out probably into the buffer area, and then it will feed that wetlands. We'll follow state practices and local practices. We'll be under the peak discharge rates with our detention. So we don't have that designed yet, but I just want to let you know that we do plan to follow state requirements. So we'll go back to the overall. Sorry, I'm switching back and forth with that. As previously mentioned, this is in the business neighborhood zoning district. That zone does not allow for retail services over 40K, or it doesn't allow for 20 to 40, but it definitely doesn't allow for over 40. Our building is 21,900. A lot of that is, not a lot, but a portion of that is back of house. So there's only 15,416 square feet of sales area for the building. But if you add the outdoor display, which I mentioned earlier, the 29,550, you do have a total sales area of 44,966 square feet. So to allow for this use, we would require relief either dimensionally, or for the dimensional requirements, or for the use requirements altogether, under the unified development process, of course. And another thing, if you do treat the 440,966 as the gospel sales area, our parking requirement doesn't work currently for your regs. It does work for tenant use. They typically like 60 to 70 parking spaces. We are providing 66, and that a lot of we've designed with 63. So that's their range that they like to go for. 66 does satisfy just the building, the 21,900, but if you added all the other sales area, it would not. So we would need relief from that parking requirement as well.
Mr. Chairman, ask a question. Is the sales area seasonal or is it year-round?
The outdoor display is year-round. There's portions of it that are seasonal.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a toss-up. I do have a list of the uses in there, and just because we like to make this clear with the board, because there's a lot of things that some people don't know that actually happen in a tractor supply. So I'm going to go through that list real quick right now. Obviously, retail. And as I mentioned, the outdoor sales and storage with the fenced display area, the outdoor sales and storage along the permanent sidewalk display, which I already mentioned, the installation and operation of the live goods center in the fenced outdoor display area. That's that, the darker green area within that yellow. The outdoor display of merchandise in the permanent trailer and equipment display area, which is the magenta. The outdoor display and sales of bulk propane from 1,000-gallon tank, the display of welding gas, live plants, shrubs, flowers, trees, and garden products, trailers, pedal boats, and motorized vehicles. The motorized vehicles include mini bikes, dirt bikes, go-karts, scooters, tractors, and utility vehicles, as well as all-terrain vehicles. The outdoor display of sales and hay of forage, and which a lot of people don't know, pet grooming and washing services, and pet veterinarian services, which is, they're not permanent, they're kind of like a pop-up. They come in sometimes and provide that. Similar to, they also do like, you can adopt a dog, so they'll come in periodically. Actually, that's why I got my rescue, was at a tractor supply. First time I've ever been to a tractor supply, actually. And the pet grooming is not a service that they provide. They just have a tub in there for you to actually do it yourself. So it's not a service that they provide. I do that trips people up too sometimes. So I just want to make that clear. And then I also have another board here, which I apologize I did not provide a slide for, but I do have 11 by 17s to hand out if you would like. This is just kind of a prototypical front facade of a tractor supply. I'm sure some of you have been before. Let me hand that out right now. Again, I just have the front facade. The pattern pretty much goes around the rest of the building too. So we have the 8-inch split face CMU that's the brick, the tan brick and the darker tan brick. They do a 4-foot strip of different paint color, and the rest is a lighter tan color. There is an awning that goes across the front of the store. It sticks out about 4 feet into the sidewalk. The main entrance is a glass storefront that protrudes from the CMU wall. And the gray above it is like, it's a corrugated galvanized steel paneling. I think that goes longitudinally, or, yeah. And then you have your decorative light fixtures that provide the light to the building signage above that. And then you have this is all, it continues, so there's a match line here I put, because I didn't have a board that was that long, but, so beside that, you have the outdoor display fence, and wherever there's an entrance, it's only an 8-foot high fence, but it does change to a 16-foot high fence along where there's no openings, which is the majority of the fenced-in area. And that's pretty much my presentation.
Anyone have any questions, comments?
So in the past, this property was an orchard. And I've been told previously that there was excessive water runoff at that point to the neighborhood in the rear of Edward Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I guess, been controlled with growth, brush, which does that naturally.
Yeah.
With the disturbance of this, I've got a little concern of that reoccurring and having an issue for those neighbors that have not had any water issues. Now we could be creating a problem. So I think either a study or somehow look at the rear part of the property, do some type of I'm not sure if it's proper to be a detention or retention pond, which is, just for seasonal water to be held. I know you talked about groundwater being captured.
Oh, the runoff from all hardscapes will be
Yes.
captured, put in a detention, and then it'll slowly leak out, and it'll be below the existing condition. Now, what we can also do, a lot of engineers, they design it for the current condition, so there's clearings there, right? We could theoretically design it for the former condition, and it'll be more of an intense use for us to design for. So we could make it all forest again, like it used to be, or something, back in I don't know when, instead of counting the clearing spaces, because we use these things called CN values that reflect the peak discharge rate. So if we made it all forest, it would have in the existing condition, it would have a lower peak discharge. So we would have to match that. And that would mean our detention basins would be bigger internally, and we would do everything in our power to match that. So we could design for former conditions, and it would make the site even better.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful for just everybody surrounding to be welcoming of, be good neighbors.
Yeah, and the issue that he's talking about with the water runoff and the flooding on Edward Avenue is relatively recent, because it came up as an issue when there was a development on Edward Avenue, and, the planning office can give you more details on that, so you'll have some background information on it. And some things had to be done, but again, it was seasonal, but, it created a small flood zone, and so that was a big problem. So, and it's all coming down from that property. So it's just something, take a look at that, but that'll need to be mitigated if it's still occurring,
Right.
which I'm not sure of, but we certainly have some residents in the area who, at some point, you'll probably hear from. So but I would recommend talking to the planning office about that project. So,
Was that, I believe, I heard a Walmart was?
No.
Oh,
It
it
was,
stopped?
no, it was a residential.
Oh, it was a residential?
It was an extension of Edward
Oh.
Avenue, but it raised that.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if there was another commercial development that
Nope.
came in.
No,
You took my thought.
it's just a
Sorry.
it's just a characteristic of the property.
happened once in the last 5 years.
We've been
I
sitting
do have
on
a
the same-
Go
question,
ahead,
please,
Dr.
thanks.
Roberts.
You had said that currently the design is for 66 parking spots.
Correct.
And that's under what the, our
It
requirements?
matches, actually.
Oh, it matches, okay.
We did it to that, which was for the building itself, just for the building area.
Right.
Right. But if you counted all the outdoor displays, obviously we would be under park per the town code.
I guess I'm just curious how that works when we're looking at this, as a board. Are we supposed to be looking at the entire surface, including the other retail sections, or would we
Right.
only be looking at that indoor retail for the parking? I'm just wondering how that matches.
So that's a zoning question, and that's a good question. And the way that the zoning ordinance reads, it's gross floor area, GFA, and that does not include outdoor sales area.
Okay.
So when he's saying they're meeting the code, they are meeting the code, but also what this gentleman is saying is that their sales area expands to the outside, and they're not compensating for that. We can have a discussion about that moving forward, but the code is based on gross floor area, which is the
Right.
square footage of the building. Now, I think I heard him say that the sales area, the interior sales area is about 16,000 square feet, and the rest is what he's calling, back of house, which is storage, offices, restrooms, hallways, things like that, that really don't create foot traffic. So there's probably some happy medium in there that, we can go back and forth with the applicant on in perfecting what we would think would be a reasonable amount of parking.
Right.
I'm not saying that this is or isn't, because we haven't gotten into
Right.
that great a detail, but
But I think we know, I mean.
they are meeting the letter of the ordinance
When you,
with this.
when you go to Lowe's,
Okay, thanks.
there are people that park just to go into their outdoor retail area, right?
Right.
Again, it may be seasonal, but it's 8 months a year. It's not like 2 months a year, so. So that would be the concern, not so much the sidewalk stuff. People aren't driving there just to do something on the sidewalk, but it's the big yellow area, so.
We do have parking studies that Tractor Supply has done in the past too that we could submit
That'd be
to
helpful.
support the
What-
60 to 70.
Now, is
range.
this a standard footprint for the
It
stores?
is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other, Mr. Porter?
I see on the plans that you provided us that you have good neighbor options, and I would hope that we have the majority of those checked off when this is sent to us next time. Just because, we're big on light shielding, keeping everything, all the light within the complex. I
Yep.
see, looking at this elevation, these wall pack fixtures, I'm not sure if they're up lights or down lights, but let's make sure that they're down
Yep.
lights, just because we're also trying to comply with dark sky.
Mhm.
Same thing with property, the trash screen, visibility, the FOD visibility screen. Knowing that there's residential to the left, plan left of here, and to the south, plan south on here, I would want to make sure that we're being respectful of those neighbors that surround the areas. And the other thing is, I'm looking at your disturbance line, or the demise premises line here.
Yep.
Does that mean that you're gonna be clear cutting the site within this orange line? Or will, particularly in the wetlands and in the front, I know the building acts as a billboard itself, but are we leaving most of the forestry and trees that are there, or would we be clear cutting that?
No, the demise premise is just something this is actually a Tractor Supply's legal document.
Sure.
So it's just their area that the owner of the property will use for billing and payment and stuff in the future. Our limited disturbance will follow our grades, which we obviously haven't done yet.
Yep.
But we will not be disturbing the buffer. And this wetland is currently being classified, so we don't know if it's gonna be a 75-foot buffer or 100. That's still in the process of their review. But if anything, there'll probably just be minimal grading, but the LOD line will follow that, and we will not clear anything else beyond the LOD line.
Okay, but between where you're coming in for the driveway and the property line, that whole area, you're thinking will be cleared out? Kind of north of?
That is a good question. I am not sure about
Okay.
that, but I see what you mean for visibility.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take away the building as a billboard, but at the same time, you're entering into a residential area. So I want to also make sure that we're,
Oh, they have balance.
balancing the commercial and the
Right.
neighborhood, because we're a
And-
business neighborhood. I want to make sure we're balancing that and not just clear cutting the
Well,
site to drop the building in.
And there is a pylon sign
Yeah.
also.
Yep.
So the building itself is not the only signage,
Right.
so I think that's important. Right.
Yeah, I'll definitely, when we design this, we'll
Yeah,
take
'cause,
that into
I
note.
mean, you could, if you're looking for live feed, if any of those apple trees are still in, commission,
Yeah,
you can keep those around. I'm a little partial to them because that's, was an old family farm of mine, so, glad to see that it's gonna start getting put back to use, but I'd like to see some apple trees continuing.
I used to pick those.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Mr. Menard?
So I know there was mention of a dumpster.
Yes.
I would have concerns or a request that the dumpster be in some type of a fenced enclosure, just to contain anything, any debris that got loose that would not go into a neighbor's property. Try to keep it somewhat
Right.
contained.
Well, and even for visibility through the trees and stuff.
Right.
But you're right, just like they have
I
at Cumberland.
look at it,
Cumberland
looks like a
Farms
pretty
has
good distance from the residential to that, but who knows what the foliage is?
Yeah.
Come winter time, it's
Yeah,
probably a
it's-
clear sight.
It is, yeah.
And right now, it's happening again, right? It's popping
Right.
out. But just in general use, people aren't conscientious of throwing everything in perfectly.
Yep, no, that
And
makes
you're gonna
sense.
have, you're gonna have this stuff flying around potentially, and try to mitigate that.
Right. So we start off with the prototypical, and that
Yeah.
is their prototypical.
Sure.
And that is a common question we get all the time, and they oblige all the time, so.
Go ahead.
We're talking about extending the water line a little bit. There's been a lot of it.
Yeah, 950.
There's been another applicant before this board that's extending the water line even further past this property, Slater Estates, right?
Oh.
If,
And I don't know where that project stands, but it might be worth some coordination between the applicants. I don't know if the one's going forward and the other is not, but I know that has been in front of our board previously with the extension of the water line, so it might be worthwhile just having some coordination call for both of the applicants to understand what's being done.
We can certainly put the applicant in contact with the Slater Estates development. My most recent understanding on that is that was for sale.
Okay,
And a condition of that approval for that project was that they extend the water line all the way down into Slater Estates and then looping it around.
yep,
That was an expensive proposition for that development, and likely the reason that development hasn't happened.
right.
okay. All right, no, that's
Tractor Supply has been in contact with our water division, and they're aware of the size and the extent of the water line. If there is some cost sharing, which I think you might be alluding to,
Right.
certainly be good for them to reach out.
right.
Yeah.
But if not, I would hope that wouldn't stop this project from coming forward, because
no.
the extension of that water line to this would open up other development
Yep.
from is it East Main?
North.
North Main, I'm
North
sorry.
Main, yeah.
From North Main in, the Bridgetos could be redeveloped across the street. There's some marginal use in
Yeah.
between
Right.
the bank and the gas station that may be prime for development
Yeah.
because of the extension of the water. So this project actually,
Is there a coffee shop that's on Welwick?
there's one right across the street.
Okay, I thought I saw that on.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on well, septic, and natural gas.
So, yeah, just,
Yeah, yeah.
so, and then, had something else, but then I lost it. It'll come back to me.
There is sewer.
Yeah, yeah.
I have further feedback about the good neighbor concept and not knowing exactly what would be on that list and building off of some things that Mr. Porter was saying. As a member of the planning board, when something new like this is being proposed in our community, I often bring the perspective of this being an opportunity to improve and like give to the community. So I'm interested in design that complements the community, complements the nature of the area, gives more to us, because right in that little corridor, there's some newer buildings that are attractive, with like stone, and they look really nice. And then another strip mall that is kind of old and, could use sprucing up or whatever, maybe what Mark was alluding to. But I would be very interested in seeing this be a very attractive building and site,
Right.
because we want it to look like that around it. And so I'm imagining, like, if you did it in a strip mall in kind of like an industrial setting, it would be one set of specs, but you're doing it in more of like a community neighborhood kind of setting with a smaller shopping area and just sidewalks and everything. So if you could just advocate for having a sensitivity around like a nicer design.
Yeah, I can definitely talk to Tractor Supply and our client about any architectural upgrades they might be able to make. I've seen that in the past. So yeah, I can definitely reach out.
Well, and I think it speaks to what Mr. Porter brought up about not clear cutting those two areas on either side of the drive, because that's a way to make it very attractive. I don't know if you hold like gas grill events and stuff like that, where people might actually be doing some cooking to help sell gas grills, but.
Not that I know.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if they do that, but if there's anything like that, picnic areas, even for the employees, all those things go a long way to making a much more community base as opposed to, as Dr. Roberts said, something industrial, so. Is it my turn?
It's always your turn.
No, it's okay. So I had a couple of questions. So you mentioned part of what's sold in the outdoor retail space or motor vehicle, different types of motor vehicles, which I assume is, ATVs and, scooters, whatever.
Yeah, not every store does it, but they'd like to give the whole gamut
Okay.
to the planning board, but.
So are people allowed to test drive them?
No.
Good-
They can't
good
even
answer.
they're not even allowed to put gas in these.
Okay.
That has to be done all offsite.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
very good. The other thing is just, especially since you're going to analyze the parking requirements a little more, there's a small parcel on the northwest side, but that small trapezoidal,
Oh, okay, yep.
right there, yep. Have you considered acquiring that, which would give you the opportunity to have not only more frontage, which could potentially allow for separate, two curb cuts, but also would give you room for more parking and still give you room to have a treat area and all that kind of stuff?
That is well above my pay grade. But I can definitely ask the client.
All right, I'd ask you to take a look. Yeah, I didn't mean it for you, if you personally had looked into it.
No, yeah.
I just want to be clear.
Great idea, but it might get me fired.
So,
Can you explain that one more time? I heard what you said.
Well,
but
so
I
if you
don't
have,
understand.
you see that trapezoid area where the cursor is, right?
Mhm.
Well, if they acquired that, or somehow worked that incorporate it into the lease zone, well, now you'd have a lot more frontage. So you actually could have two ways to get in and out of the of the property. But you certainly have the opportunity of expanding the parking as well, going north. And still have, so if you have a curb cut on the west side, curb cut on the east side, it could still allow for a nice treat area in the middle but with more of with a better, to me, a better traffic flow too, because you could have people coming in one way, going out the other, et cetera. So that's sort of, because otherwise I don't know what that property is for. I'm pretty sure that property is undeveloped.
Would that
Currently.
create a whole new twist to this for a subdivision?
Well, it depends on how it was acquired. If it was acquired by the current landowner and merged together, then I would say no.
They'd have to do a merge first.
They'd have to merge the properties, right, and then expand the lease zone,
Yeah.
right, that's,
That's the-
yeah.
So,
So,
I
but
have
anyway.
one other question is, you show in the traffic pattern, I'm sure it's all, right now it's preliminary, hypothetical, but it shows like a center line on 102 where traffic to turn into, and that does not exist currently.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that.
Okay.
I don't know if they digitized that wrong. It looks like they might have. But when we get,
I mean, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I would employ that all day long, but.
yeah, no, I see what you're saying, yeah. Our survey will pick up along our property edge, so we'll have the
Okay.
appropriate, street width and frontage, so.
All right, thank you.
Did I hear you say that you're going to have a sidewalk coming from Victory Highway to the building? Did I
No,
hear that wrong? Okay.
I did not propose that, but,
It might be a good idea to make, because the neighboring plaza is very walkable, in the neighborhood around it, it might be worthwhile just having a sidewalk for people to be going back and forth. Because, you know, some people could be going to Dunkin' across the street, grab a coffee, and then be coming through. So that might be something worthwhile to look into as well, just to have some pedestrian access straight to the building.
Yeah.
And along with that, if we did have something like that, it would probably make sense to have at least a crosswalk striped in, right? Not necessarily with lights or anything, but have a crosswalk, because like you said, the Dunkin' Donuts and,
If the OT lets you.
yeah, if they let us,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I,
it's a DOT jurisdiction, yeah.
right, because that is a state road, yeah.
and I feel like that adds to that concept of it being more like a village, you know, like a walkable kind of friendly setting versus like highway. Yeah.
Anything else from the board?
I feel like Rich Keen on asking this question.
I was gonna go down that road.
Is there any, you know, you're not developing a good chunk of the back portion of the property. Could it be considered that you allow for some trails to be made back there, for some community-based recreation that's back there? I don't know, the historic, I know the historic nature of the property was the orchard previously, so I didn't know if that could, you know, be entertained and see if there was any potential ability to provide additional recreation space behind the building that's just not being used.
I think that would have to include the property owner in it. Because-
Yeah,
right, because
right.
I can definitely.
they've got the leased zone,
Okay.
but on the other hand, they'd be instrumental in making that possible. But
Yep.
I think the property owner would have to be involved as well.
Yeah.
I can
Just a
definitely pitch that idea.
Yep,
Yeah.
great.
So that makes a good point that I'm asking. So now, Tractor Supply is only leasing what I'm gonna look at right now and say red area,
Yep,
not the entire parcel.
they're
Correct.
correct.
I'm not really sure how the deal structure is.
Okay.
I know they had us prepare this. I'm not sure if that's what their final say is. I mean, it could very well be the owner buys the Tractor Supply and runs it himself. You know, I'm not really sure how this is really gonna
Okay.
work.
And I think that leads back to the point that Dr. Roberts was making. If, you know, the lease runs out, we're left with a building, then, you know, we might not want the prototypical Tractor Supply
Right.
building in place. So, you know, you can look to the plaza next door, which is all brick masonry. It pays homage back to all of the mill structures that we have over here, this building. You know, keeping in line with the aesthetic of the villages around here, I think would be beneficial as well.
Right. Well, the
When-
other,
when
the
we're
other,
thinking of
the other
this
two I'm
building.
thinking of are the new Cumberland Farms and what I believe is a dental office and stuff. And they follow that different style, but you know, the hip roof and
Mhm.
clapboard and stuff like that.
Yeah, a New England style building.
Similar to what the Seasons did as well, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, and I just had a couple comments. I'm just looking at the site and just with my experience in this field. A couple of things I would like to bring up. Just double check with the fire department regarding the only one egress in.
Yeah.
And you're also looking at the egress next to a propane tank enclosure, so surrounded by woods. So again, worst case scenario, that if there's fire risk and all that, something happens there, they're gonna be blocked off from getting to that building. And then the other thing was just double check with the fire department about, they may wanna be able to access all around the building, especially if it's enclosed, if you're gonna have stock outside, especially vehicles or anything like that. So just when you come back, just double check with the fire department, make sure they know what they're going on.
Is that part of the major development process? Do town staff get involved in that? Okay, so it'll run
Absolutely.
through them? I mean, we'll reach out for sure.
Police,
but-
fire, DPW.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a technical review committee.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, those are good points, though. I will say, I'm not sure if the fire department will like this, but there's a gate back here and a gate up front, so there is circulation that you could possibly do through the garden center. Not garden center, but the fenced, outdoor display area, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Sorry, we're not voting on anything.
Nope.
So, I think we've got, oh no, we get something on the land use chapter. Oh no, sorry, that's the same project, never mind.
Administrative subdivision.
Yes.
You gotta keep scrolling.
Yeah, jeez. Oh, next on the agenda is our administrative subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, the administrative subdivision recorded recently, this is a street abandonment as a result of a Superior Court judgment against the town that was approved in 2022. And because of a transaction of this property and a title search, the attorney representing the buyers noticed that the street abandonment and the administrative subdivision never occurred. So he came back to the department. We had a file. We opened it. And what we proposed to do as part of the settlement with the court was to require, as part of the street abandonment, which you can see is it's actually grassed area that runs into open space owned by the town, is to merge the two lots on either side of the street so that it is one large lot, and that we don't end up with an additional buildable lot. So we required them to merge that. They came in, and again, it was a court judgment against the town for requiring us to abandon the street, and as a condition of that, we requested that all the lots be merged, including the paper street, and they just accomplished that. It took 2 years, but we just recorded it.
Okay, thank you. With that, if there's nothing further,
Make a motion to adjourn.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:05.